Hi everyone.
Greetings.
We're in the Proclaimers book on page 99. The subheading is Intensified Training in House-to-House Ministry. At the New World Society Assembly held in New York City, July 19 to 26, 1953, new publications were provided for Jehovah's Witnesses themselves and for use especially in the house-to-house proclamation of the kingdom. For example, the release of Make Sure of All Things brought forth thunderous applause from the 125,040 present on Monday, July 20. A handy field service tool, the 416-page pocket-sized book assembled more than 4,500 scriptures under 70 main themes. Jehovah's Witnesses now had at their fingertips the scriptural answers to questions raised in their house-to-house preaching.
On Wednesday morning, during the talk Principal Work of All Servants, Brother Knorr announced a further step in the ongoing education of Jehovah's Witnesses, an extensive house-to-house training program be put into operation in all congregations. More experienced publishers were asked to help less experienced ones to become regular, effective house-to-house proclaimers of the kingdom. This far-reaching program began September 1, 1953. Jesse L. Cantwell, a traveling overseer who took part in the training work, observed, "This program really helped the publishers to become more efficient."
In the months following July 1953, extension conventions were held on all 5 continents, with locally adapted forms of the same program. The intensified training in the house-to-house ministry was thus initiated in congregations of Jehovah's Witnesses around the world. That same year, the number of kingdom proclaimers peaked at 519,982.
Then a new subhead, Meeting the Needs of Global Expansion.
Mm-hmm.
In the mid-1950s, further arrangements were made to care for the rapid growth in the organization. For more than a decade, N.H. Knorr had traveled the globe to inspect the operation of the branches. These trips did much to ensure proper supervision of the work in each country and to strengthen the worldwide unity of Jehovah's Witnesses. Brother Knorr had a deep love for the missionaries and those serving in the branches around the world. Wherever he went, he took time to talk with them about their problems and needs, and to encourage them in their ministry. But in 1955, there were 77 branch offices of the Watchtower Society and 1,814 Gilead-trained missionaries serving in 100 different lands. Realizing that it was more than he could handle alone, Brother Knorr took steps to include others in this important work of visiting the branches and the missionary homes.
Arrangements were made to divide the earth into 10 zones, each zone embracing a number of the Society's branches. Qualified brothers from the office in Brooklyn and experienced branch overseers were appointed to be zone servants, now called zone overseers. That might have changed by now. And were trained for this work by Brother Knorr. On January 1st, 1956, the first of these zone servants inaugurated this new service of visiting branches. As of 1992, upward of 30 brothers, including members of the governing body, were serving as zone overseers.
I guess the first thing to do is just check the assumptions that are behind all of this. First of all, that brothers, anybody, should go door to door. So there's no evidence at all in the New Testament that anyone canvassed door to door, including the apostles.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the question of, well, why do you need a 416-page pocket-sized book assembled with 70 main themes?
Yeah, because you're proof texters. And so you organize the Bible by themes or subjects instead of actually studying Bible books. I would say that's the answer.
So so the question is, why isn't the Bible organized that way? You organize all your literature that way, except sometimes the ones you think of as Bible commentaries, like the Ezekiel books or the Revelation studies. But all the books you use for public consumption, the way you organized your thinking, and now this Make Sure book, organized along the same lines under 70 heads.
Right.
The Bible, therefore, is not organized. So this is an unbiblical way of doing evangelism.
Yeah. And the reason they make it obvious that they need this, because the people don't know the Bible well.
Yeah.
And you're training them to be proof texters.
To at least to appear to know the Bible well.
Yeah. Get around the Bible, like make their way to Bible books easily, and maybe know specific text that they can use to answer.
I have known people who are really good at this. I remember my first overseer, when our congregation had only one overseer, just before elders were brought in the early 70s. Ron was a really good proof texter. He could really wrap people up in a knot at the door. I was with him and
that
saw him
gives
do it
you
on
confidence. It makes you feel like you're right.
Right. So I wanted to be like that. So I made lists of scriptures from the same list that you get in your books and magazines, and the Make Sure book, I was using it. Make the lists, memorize the lists, and you've got, in my case, 1,000 proof texts at your disposal. Yeah. But if someone had just stopped me then at the door and just thrown an off-the-wall question such as, well, tell me why the book of Romans was written. When was it written? Why did Paul write it? And why did he structure it the way he did? I would have been lost.
Yeah. Or why are there 4 Gospels?
Yeah. That's a great question. Why are there 4 Gospels? Because if you organized the Bible your way, you would have made one harmonious Gospel.
Yeah.
Then you wouldn't have to deal with all the issues of so-called contradictions.
Yeah. Why are there differences in them? And why are 3 of them called the Synoptic Gospels, which you wouldn't even know the word? At least I didn't as a witness. I'd never heard anybody say.
So what does it mean?
Synoptic. Well, it's you said of the...
Written from the same vantage point.
Yeah.
Or a similar vantage point.
Right.
But so then there's one that isn't.
John, that's totally different from the others. And if someone had asked me why, I don't think I would have been very good at coming up with an answer.
And there's a very good reason why you don't know these things as a witness and why you don't even think about them.
Or even have noticed.
Because even the 4 Gospels one would tell you that there are different angles in the New Testament period. That is, the writers and their audiences have different ways of looking at the priorities of Christ and the story. The same story they believe in, the same gospel, but they look at it from a different angle and emphasize different things. Now you're not, you don't know anything about that.
And the fact that one is written much later and has more theology in it.
Right.
Why didn't we kind of know those things? Maybe some witnesses did, but I certainly wouldn't have been proficient in that area. So I would say another question maybe is, if you're able to organize this, what do they call it, extensive, intensified training for door-to-door work, why couldn't you organize and motivate people to do thorough Bible study programs so that they would really know their Bibles, and then they would feel comfortable when they did talk to someone? But you put all of the pressure on the door-to-door work before they even really know the Bible.
Right.
Because, we had people who weren't baptized yet going out in field service, promoting their books.
Yep.
And their teachings.
Yes, I went out in field service the first time before I was baptized.
This is not well-prepared people then. You've got unqualified people going out.
Yeah, and that's always the case. So what was visible in Ron Hiller's day, the overseer I'm talking about, that there were some veterans from the World War II era who were really good at what they did, trained by this method.
Yeah.
They at least gave the appearance of knowing their Bibles. I don't get that impression with modern witnesses. But that begs another question, which is taken up in the second paragraph here, which is, we've already said there's no evidence anyone went door to door, house to house in the New Testament, including the apostles. So obviously they would not need any training program to go door to door. So this
And that's
is
why you don't
another
find
unbiblical
in the New Testament.
thought.
Yeah.
And that goes along with what we've already said in several videos, namely that why does not Paul, in any of his 13 epistles, mention preaching as an obligation upon all Christians?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What are our links?
We are. We were going to talk too. Sorry. We were going to talk too about what we've noticed over the years in our association with churches about the way they do Bible study. Now, I wouldn't say that all churches, at least not in where we are great at getting people to go to Bible study, like a thorough Bible study. They have,
The same people.
Similar kind of
A small
thing.
number, yeah.
Yeah. But they do have it available if you want to do really close study of Scripture. And so people who end up being ministers, they will get training. They will actually do thorough study, and some of them will become experts in certain areas.
Yeah. Among our friends, for instance, we've had over the years, one of our pastors was an expert in theology, the history of theology.
Yeah.
That was his field of expertise. One of our friends who gave us many of our books was a chaplain. So he was a minister, a Methodist minister, who had expertise in the New Testament generally.
Yeah.
And then we had, among our friends and co-workers, a Christian historian whose field was
Church history.
coverage of all history, not just the history of theology, as our pastor was.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had we have a fourth friend who we're working with now, who is an expert in the Gospel of Matthew. You don't know such people exist when you're with a person who's spent a decade just on the Gospel of Matthew.
Yeah. So there is thorough Bible study available if you want to among Christians. And those people don't just read books. They end up being good Christian workers.
Pastors,
Yeah.
chaplains in prisons, as our friend was,
Mm-hmm.
or administrators, as our church historian was.
Yeah.
They all have gifts that they put to the use of the church.
Yeah.
So they're not just academics who are just good readers.
Yeah. Okay. So
Our link was?
Now I'll give you the links. We had a link, Ray Franz dismantles door-to-door dogma, and then the playlist to the videos we did of Ray Franz's book, In Search of Christian Freedom.
So that's one of the videos from that series, right? Ray Franz dismantles the door-to-door dogma.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
See you soon.